I am Murat Yülek. I am the president of Ostim Technical University. It's a new university in Ankara. And I'm also a visiting scholar, professor at Columbia University. And I'm here to attend UNCTAD's annual meeting to present about how services and industrial policy go together. Well, industrial policy, I am on the general side of industrial policy, which is how industrialization and industrial policy can be utilized to make countries grow faster, so including China or other countries. So industrial policy is very much related to trade policy, and it is a set of decisions and tools of what kind of general or specific sector-based policies can be used again to foster sustained growth.
And what is your findings?
Well, the findings is that is very interesting. There are about, let's say, about 200 countries in the world, and 180, 190 of them, more or less, are in first and second stages of industrial development, which means they are either importing machinery and producing very standard products, and then in the second stage it means they are using those machinery very good. So they don't go, many of them, they don't go to the third stage, which is imitation, or we call it also reverse engineering. China is trying to go there now under the 13th plan. And then the fourth stage of development is innovation. It includes branding, so new products, new machineries, new brands, higher value added. So again, China is trying to do that as far as we are following from outside. The thing is, in the first and second stages, most of the countries are there. So there is a huge amount of competition, very difficult for countries to survive there. And therefore they are basically pressed in terms of their per capita income. So that we call it, all those countries which are in the first and second stage also happen to be the countries that are either in the low income trap or middle income trap. So our finding is that if you want to go beyond the low or middle income trap, you have to follow the right industrial policies. The policies, for example, that Japan, Korea, Germany at some time, US at some other time, they tried to do.
What they did?
Well, what they did is they, to go from the second to the third stage, they shifted their policies from quote unquote general policies to specific sector-based policies. What I mean by that is that the general policy is like, let's say, a financial policy or a tax policy that support any kind of industrialization. Specific policy is, let's say, what Japan has done. They said, let's say, for example, let's select a few sectors like automobiles, electronics, shipbuilding. So let's select them correctly, and let's provide more support or specific support to those pioneering industries. And that worked very well in those countries.
How do you think in China? Do you think China will or has experienced the middle income trap?
China is a very interesting country. It's a giant. It's a very interesting country. Now, the way we understand, although we are, to be frank, we had to know more about China. So I personally, I didn't study China very well. I need to. But what they have been doing since 1950s is they had some kind of an industrial policy. For example, what we have seen is that instead of one industrial ministry of industry, they had several ministries of industry for automobile, for this, for that, for that. That we learned when we were there upon their invitation of the Chinese government. And then after 1978, when they opened up, the industrial policy coincided with the new export promotion-based trade policy, which went very, very well. Now we see that China is supporting its, for example, electronics or telecom industries, and they are doing very well there. They are becoming a world leader, that's for sure, in those areas. That's also creating a tension, of course, with the US. Now US is not very happy to be, seeing it from outside, that China is going very fast in certain fields. So that is, I think, an industrial policy. We did some studies and some scholars wrote about industrial policy in China in more detail. Personally, I'm still a student there. I have to learn more about China.
So do you think these countries, they focus from a general side to the specific side. Do you think that means they're giving up some other parts of the policies?
Sure. Yeah, because some sectors are different than others. Some sectors they provide more social returns, more economic returns to the society than other sectors. So there are certain criteria that can tell you which sector is better, quote unquote, than other sectors for the development. So if you are doing that, that means you are concentrating your resources on certain sectors. And of course, the corollary of it is you are not providing enough support to others. But that is good, because the assumption is that in the long run, when these higher return sectors develop faster, through their linkages, actually they are supporting the other industries as well. For example, let's say shipbuilding. Shipbuilding has a lot of linkages. We call it backward linkages, meaning a lot of different sectors provide inputs to ship sector. So if you develop shipbuilding industry, then you are actually supporting the development of all those sectors that are providing inputs. For example, electronics, material, energy, a lot of others. So if you are supporting a sector with a lot of linkages, you are supporting all those sectors actually. Yeah.
So this means that it's not necessarily to giving up, but to...
That's true. You are giving up at the upstream level. At the upstream level, you are giving up in the sense that you are concentrating your resources in certain high level or high value sectors. But actually, ultimately, at the end of the day, you are supporting, by those limited amount of high technology or high priority sectors, you are actually supporting a lot of other sectors in the economy.
Well, from my point of view, beside the industrial policy, there's a lot of other reasons. For example, natural resources, labors, and so on.
Right.
But how is the industrial policy connected with the development of economy?
No, why? Because industrial policy prioritizes the manufacturing sector, and the manufacturing sector has a very specific role in development, because it is, as we call it, the engine of growth. So engine of growth means the productivity level and growth is very high in manufacturing compared to services or compared to agriculture. So if you want to grow faster your per capita income, which for example for China is very important, then you have to go with the higher growth sector, which will benefit, of course, other sectors. And I'm not saying that, when you're supporting the priority sectors in manufacturing, you should forget about services or you should forget about agriculture. Actually, manufacturing fits with all other sectors very well. Because if you have, for example, material or chemical industry or food-based industries, that means you are working with agriculture. On the other hand, manufacturing itself is servicified nowadays, meaning if you are developing your computer sector, computer manufacturing, what is the computer? When I work with the computer, you see, and I get a lot of services from the computer, is it the hardware or the software giving me those services? It's both. So actually, when you are supporting the IT sector, you are supporting both the services, which is software, and at the same time, hardware technology, both of them. So manufacturing is a sector that has a lot of linkages with the entire economy. But there again, the priority, the important thing should be you have to have priority sectors,
yes,
like electronics.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.